Welcome. It is like the eighth Monday in 2026, meaning it is the eighth Flow Chasers Monday. And I will be presenting a theory on accessing flow state. This is coming from somebody who's a creative, who's neurospicy, and we'll get all into all of that in just a bit. Let's see if my. All right, so there is a plan. I'm going to share what this whole thing is about, who I am. Before I talk about flow state, I find it's really important to talk about burnout, which is kind of like the antithesis of this like chasing flow lifestyle that I would like to present in a little bit. A little bit about who I am. I don't have anything to sell. This Flow Chaser Monday for me was a goal that I set back in 2025 because I wanted to see incremental progress being made. What would happen if I revisited a presentation over and over again on Mondays? And I placed it on a Mondays at 6 a.m. because it's actually a personality fit for me. I love waking up early in the mornings. I get my best thinking done. Um, and I love the energy of a new start. So Mondays at 6 a.m. was born. And it wasn't so much about this presentation, everybody watching it. It was about like the progress that I can make when I show up and make small progress. You can find notes about things in this presentation at highlyanticipated.net Mondays. Right now, it's not so full, but I'm hoping to get to add more to it, especially in the spring. Let's talk about who I am. So instead of doing your usual bio page about all of my glorious accomplishments, instead I'm doing it a little differently. I'm gonna apply to be like the weirdest, cringiest person that you know. And here's the things that make me weird. Like I understand that being a morning person to a lot of people would automatically place me as like the cringiest person ever. I do live with two night owls, and we kind of separate the home nicely. I don't know. Also, I'm somebody that I would consider myself like the personality type of first dodo over the cliff. Like I'm a 1-3 as in human design. And we are the investigative martyrs. Like that's our profile type. And I feel like I fit that to a T. I don't genuinely learn from like other people's experiences the same way that other types do. I really have to like go out and try things on my own. And sometimes I win big because I'm able to come to problems with like a beginner's mindset. And other times I just like fail massively and people are like, I told you so. So that's another reason that I'm cringy. Also, I want to talk about a little bit about why I was so attractive to this like flow chasing lifestyle. And we'll talk about more about what that was. I am neurodivergent. I've been diagnosed with ADHD since I was like 8 years old. They called it ADD if you were a girl back in the 90s. But my brain just kind of goes a little bit differently. And I know everybody these days now identifies with like neurospiciness too. And I feel like flow chasing is really compatible if you have like a tricky brain to that you're trying to drive. And I also feel like because I've had burnout, that also predispositions me to really enjoy a high flow lifestyle. So let's talk about burnout. My theory is that I guess we should talk about what flow is first so that we're all on the same page. Although I've typically found when I present this idea of flow to the people that I work with, like professionals, they're very aware or they have their own ideas about what flow is because it's been used in training and education and corporate structures as this really powerful mental state that people can drop into that allows them to accomplish a lot of work, right? But as somebody with a really tricky to drive in the focus department brain, I also have a tendency to do types of shitty flow. And I would define shitty flow as like the playing a game on your phone and you come out of it and you don't feel like, "Oh, great, I'm ready to work." You just feel like you really want to keep on playing that game. Like time goes away and you don't know that you've been doing this for like an hour. I would describe that for me as like a shitty flow. There's nuance to this too, though, because what I describe as shitty flow because I'm not listening to my body cues, I don't feel like I've done anything, like I'm heading towards anything when I'm just playing on my phone. I don't even feel like it was great rest. You know, I can do things for the purpose of having great quality rest. I hope that you can too. However, I wouldn't classify shitty flow as high quality rest. And that is nuanced. Some people like the best flow that they can do on the weekend is like reading a trashy romance novel, and they feel rested and relaxed afterwards, like no kind of like, oh, I shouldn't have. Like it's that's good flow, I would say, and like restorative flow. And there's also flow that you can do for the purpose of having like progress being made in your life. But shitty flow is not one of them. Shitty flow, I think, also is working on somebody else's agendas and like emotional causes that you yourself are not connected to or don't feel a part of. So when you feel like the expectation is there, but nobody really appreciates your work, and you just go and you do because you like to do, and you lose track of time maybe, and you're just like begrudgingly kind of getting through this and you know how to do it, but you end it and you don't feel good about it. I would classify that as shitty flow. The flow that you do for other people that you are not connected to, aligned with. Shitty flow. And this shitty flow really does lead to burnout or tends to lead to burnout for one type of person, the high capacity person. You're welcome. So, what I've noticed is somebody who likes to study people is that the slackers, the ones that, you know, you tell to bring napkins to the potluck because they just aren't reliable or like low capacity people. We all know them, we all love them. They're not the people who tend to suffer from burnout because to have this burnout, what I feel needs to happen is that people have to see you as capable. And when you have the capacity to produce, to like at recognizable levels where other people are like, you, I will give you resources to do this thing, or I will give you praise to do this thing that you do. A person will tend to, from a very young age, especially if there's like trauma involved, want to do more of that thing that they get resources, attention for. Like that's natural human psychology, right? I do this thing, I get the thing. I'm going to keep on like chugging this along as much as possible until we hit burnout. And it mystifies everyone because usually burnout happens when things are going well to the external view. Like you've reached the thing. Like you've gotten the thing, you've gotten the praise, you've gotten the, you know, attention, but you're not happy. Why aren't you happy? And I would suggest that it's a lot of shitty flow from misalignment. There's still something that you need to do. And that's painful. Like I've been there. I've seen people go through it. When somebody is going through genuine burnout, they're in a lot of pain. It's suffering. It really sucks. And at a low grade, you're able to push it aside and like keep producing, keep doing the things and put yourself in more and more burnout. And that act of like pushing it aside, that discomfort is the numbing process of going unconscious. I've been there. I still kind of am there where I'm trying to regain more of my consciousness so that I have more access to my attention and my flow. So, in order to operate in this world, numbing happens, a numbing of consciousness because burnout and the misalignment from the burnout is so painful. That is my theory. Now I'm going to propose a cure, an antidote, and that is chasing flow. And I made this presentation during my depressive episode that started 3 weeks ago now. And what I've learned about chasing flow, having to do this, like having the expectation on myself that I was going to show up every week and doing this during that time was I was really tender. And chasing flow was something that like I wanted to go towards, but I really realized that my capacity, I love the spoons theory. My spoons were low during that time. So before I get into chasing flow and chasing your dreams and all the enthusiasm that I genuinely have for that, I want to give the caveat that there's a reason and a season and a time for everything. And you might not be in like a high flow season because you are healing. I certainly wasn't the past few weeks. I do feel like I'm like getting back into it and I'm really excited about things. And this will be really individual for the season and it'll be really individual for the person. I'm going to talk about what flow is or how I conceptualize flow. I'm going to talk about your brain on flow, which is my favorite slide. I'm going to talk about how to chase flow and some ideas I have around that, creativity and adaptability, and then coming back to radical self acceptance and alignment as a flow trigger. So it's going to be really fun. I hope I have enough time. We have about 15 minutes here. It's all going to happen within 30 minutes. So let's go. All right. I have a different way of conceptualizing flow than I've seen or heard from other people. And I've done a lot of reading about flow. One of my favorite listens is a audio lecture by Stephen Kotner called Mapping Cloud Nine, and it's about personal development and flow and psychedelic states and all of the and performance athletics, those types of things. It's absolutely fabulous. And he mentions the philosophy in Chasing Flow, where Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi is highly cited. And this is still my favorite model of conceptualizing for the potential of flow. And I see it as, hey, there is my comfort zone where I'm able to stay regulated and, all the way from I'm able to just unconsciously like go through life, reticular activating system, all those things, like the comfort zone. I don't have to think too hard. And then I start working my way towards the outer edge of that comfort zone. And that's where curiosity and like imagination come in. Like, I'm not sure what is going to happen, uncertainty, but I'm really curious about it. Like, that's that like liminal stage between like the comfort zone and where I feel like the potentiality for complete focus and absorption can play. So at the edge of the comfort zone and past until you reach dysregulation, until you become physically uncomfortable, mentally uncomfortable, spiritually uncomfortable, that you just cannot regulate yourself anymore. I get overwhelmed, and that's what like dysregulation looks like mostly on me. I also have like physical sensations because while ADD is like lack of focus, I also tend to hyper focus and I don't move my body or anything. Like it's not that necessarily a great thing. And then I become really dysregulated when my sensations of my body that are discomfortable, that are uncomfortable. And I feel like that's just gotten worse with age. So I don't want to know what it's going to look like in my 80s. Um, but that edge of the comfort zone all the way to when a person becomes dysregulated, I feel like is the potentiality area of flow because a flow state has like complete absorption. Um, there's a skills task match, like you know how to do it, but possibly it's like really challenging. And that challenge is like the growth edge. That's where I believe that like flow is happening. And that's important to mention for these later things that I talk about. But why this flow state is so enjoyable is one of my favorite things. So I've become a flow chaser. And what I believe that means is participating in hobbies and skills that really like regulate me, really maintaining like alignment and reducing the amount of like negative flow or shitty flow that I engage with because good flow is like this. A neurotransmitter surge happens. And I guess these are really hard to study, but when they've studied it, a neurotransmitter has happened that is like so large. And, I'll mention some of the drug names: dopamine, norepinephrine, endorphins, anandamide. Those are the same like triggers that street drugs like heroin, crack, weed, those so a lot of the neurotransmitters that are happening when people are taking street drugs are happening in this flow state. That's why it feels so good. That's why when you get out of it, you just feel like, this is great. I love the work that I did. When you're in like this really high quality flow state, it feels wonderful. And apparently, the amount that the brain is producing naturally of this neurotransmitter surge is far greater than anyone would be able to take street equivalent of, which is just crazy. Like it's free drugs and a lot of it. And another effect of this neurotransmitter surge is that it really quiets down the prefrontal cortex where we're able to process time. So that's why we are theorizing that high quality and shitty flow states, the one of the hallmarks of it is that like time gets all muddled, and that's because the quieting of the prefrontal cortex. So freaking cool. And that quieting of the prefrontal cortex is where a lot of the shitty mind chatter lives, is, trying to plan and anticipate, and the prefrontal cortex just like not, chugging along, right? But I'll take a sip. I have two beverages. This one is a mix of like astragalus root tea that I also put some like honey lavender tea for that like sweetness because the astragalus root can be pretty bitter, but it's an adaptogen that's really helpful for stress. And I have a cup of decaf coffee. So I'm like two beveraging it, which is very common. How I chase flow, especially at this phase in my life, I have a young kid, I have like a young adult, I run a business, I have mental health concerns that pop up every, half a decade or so, that I'm like going through right now. It looks so different for everybody's unique makeup. And I want to introduce this idea of finding how you chase flow as an antidote to burnout. Chasing flow, I believe, is an antidote to burnout because in how to chase flow, it all starts with self regulation. And then we quickly go into what is in alignment for you. And we talked about burnout and that the fact that I feel a lot of burnout is caused by alignment with other people, but not with you. So, what is in alignment with you? There are some flow triggers that Stephen Kotner's website, which is linked in highlyanticipated.net/Mondays. Um, there's like group flow triggers, there's individual flow triggers, there's like flow as observing a musical performance that is, or, a movie or something, or theater. There's so many ways to experience flow. And one of the things that I really started thinking about was how do I experience flow as a high flow business? And it really comes down to like knowing why you are doing what you're doing and being really in alignment with it. So mission driven. I feel that as a business owner, opposed to like somebody who's an employee, I also have a lot more freedom to when I have an idea or an inspiration or an intuition on something, I have the freedom to operate. And I feel like that is part of being a high flow business is to keep that agility and ability to like move and freedom to adapt and course correct. Also, this focused and consistent. I'm learning from even this presentation that I do every week. It's the consistency that really drives this letting the mind stay part of the mind stay in the comfort zone while you're asking these like really big questions. And I feel like that's what consistency does. It like anchors you in the comfort zone while another part of you really goes and plays in that like flow state and potentiality. Something to consider. I mean, that is a distillation of the theory about why the artist way, Julia Cameron's artist way works is because you are rooting yourself in a consistent practice while letting a part of you creatively focus and be free. Something to consider. A high flow business is also a business that is adaptive. So there's a different way that a person who's like chasing flow and a person who is just like letting life happen to them, I feel like it's the adaptations. When struggle happens, somebody who's chasing flow is going to be like, "Oh great, I can use this. I can use the struggle to adapt. The struggle is going to be met with an adaptation, and there's certainty in that. Also, kind of goes back to mission driven, but there needs to be like clear goals and direction. Like we need to know where this ship is headed. Or I think that, good flow can leave into like shitty flow where it's like we just worked for a day solid and none of that work is usable. Been there, done that, increase the timeline exponentially because sometimes you do these things and it doesn't go anywhere. It's just like bummer, but clear goals and directions are really going to help eliminate or reduce the amount of times where it just doesn't go anywhere. And then we're growing our capacity. And this is controversial. I don't even know if I fully believe this, but the theory is that you can grow capacity the more you train yourself to live outside of your comfort zone, growing your capacity for flow before you meet dysregulation. I believe we crave a high flow career because internally we realize the life that we're living right now produces the work that we're doing right now, which is all that we have, right? And we want our life force and our energy to go towards something that's like has the potentiality of being maybe larger than ourselves or having more reach than work that we've done in the future. And intuitively, we know that the way to get there is this state that we can manipulate our environment and conditions to create for ourselves. And that is a more authentic way of participating in this reality, right? And that when we're growing this space from our comfort zone before we become dysregulated, we are playing with creativity and adaptability. Adaptability, as I articulated, is struggle comes along, adaptability is created to meet that. So I wanted to introduce and propose maybe some steps to good flow. If you wanted to do like a personal flow session where you were going to work on a challenge. And my advice as you're trying it out and you're finding your own flow states, your own good flow states is, and this is really just like a good workflow, right? Is to begin with self regulation. Some people do like 5 breaths, box breathings, or when the inhale is, or the exhale is double the time of the inhale. So in 4 breaths, out 8 breaths. Really centering yourself into the here and now, and then defining like, why am I doing this? Like, what about this work is really exciting about my own values as a person and the purpose that I have in this world? So that's like finding alignment. It's not only finding why this work is important to do or why there's an expectation on you to do it, it's finding your own alignment about why you are doing this work. And then defining a clear goal. I'm going to draft a copy of the homepage. I am going to create an outline for a book. Defining a clear goal. I like to remove distractions. Other people need a lot of like artifacts to kind of follow the trail. Play around with what works for you. I take off my Apple Watch sometimes if I want like a really good flow sessions because that nothing like a little ding to get me out of it. And then sometimes I purposefully wear my Apple Watch because it will tell me when to stand up and stand down. And when I'm working, I'll typically wear my Apple Watch because I really need those notifications so that I don't get into postures that hurt my body when I get into hyper focus or these flow states. And then stop when you need to. Sometimes I set timers. I have timers for everything important that I need to do in my life, including when I need to start getting my kid ready for school, when I need to pick them up from the bus, my like bedtime routine, start time. Timers for everything works for me. Find out what works for you. I also believe that if you're finding it hard to get into these long term focus states, it might be because your body has developed a distrust of your ability to stop when it cues it to. And this is something that I've noticed for myself that as I get into these like all nighters and I'm just like, penciling things out and I'm ignoring when I need to go to the bathroom or when I need to drink or when I need to stop, my body is like hurt by my focus and attention. And I feel like that the next time I come back to another flow session, it's like, hey, you're going to do that thing. So I'm going to ratchet up these, signals that we need to stop and make them even more clear. So now what I'm doing is I'm setting timers and I'm just like, I'm babying my body when I come out of these flow states. Like after this, I'm going to be like, what do you need? You need some water? You need some tea? Do you need to go to the bathroom? Like, what's going on? And that's a way that I'm like developing trust in my body so that I can drop into good flow and that my body knows it's safe. What's different than chasing goals versus chasing flow is this radical self acceptance and alignment piece. I believe that whoever you are, your own stew of talents, experiences, and challenges is worthy of acceptance and support. And when you chase flow, chasing towards that North Star, towards your own alignment and who you are as a person, and like the gifts and projects and things that you want to create from that, from your alignment, not from other people's expectations on your time. And this, in part, will build capacity for these really good feeling states. Thank you for watching. I think this is the shortest I've ever gotten to it. I'm at 6:31. Um, I do this every Monday morning at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.